think the back is, I can't tell if it's glass.
Which model is that?
It's the V11. It's called the V11 Pro in India, but it's called the V11 everywhere else.
And it has no USLT.
Not that I can tell. Yeah, it could be different SKUs. It might not be an Indian SKU.
I bet it has band 5 if it's an Indian phone, and that is a supplementary band on AT&T T-Mobile. It's in very few places.
Yeah, so it doesn't work at all basically here. And I don't have an AT&T SIM to test. All I have is Project Fi and Verizon. So no dice on a battery evaluation in the review. Also, this OS is so iPhone. It's really gross.
I hate that
control center in the bottom and everything.
Oh, gross.
Like, and the app drawer or the notification tray has like a search bar and everything. It's,
that's a nice notch though.
It's a nice notch. It's the teardrop notch. I mean, it's basically the display design.
Is there a chin? I didn't see. Does it have like a big honking chin down there at the bottom?
Not really. No, the chin's very standard.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Are we live already?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I told you we are. We're live.
Told you. No one knows what we're doing.
Well, this is in secret, so I can't show it. It's fine. Oh, by the way, these in-display fingerprint scanners are hot garbage. Just utter junk.
Oh, really? See, I've been worried about that. Like, we used that Vivo phone at MWC, and it was like kind of sketchy, but it was like, a prototype, so who knows? But I haven't used any like in real life yet, like an actual production phone.
So what's amazing is the fingerprint scanner, it takes forever. It takes like a full second at least to scan your finger. And then the rejection rate is insane. Ooh. Like half of my fingerprints are rejected.
I speculated about this in our iPhone thing. Like, what if these scanners suck? And then what are we going to do?
They suck.
Yeah, then it's like, I guess.
So what they've done on this Vivo phone that makes it work effectively much better. They have this ultra wide angle front facing camera. It's 25 megapixels, something ridiculous. So if you open up the camera app, the field of view looks like a standard selfie camera, but I'm very sure that's a crop sensor view. And so basically, like, I can have the phone at like this angle from my face, and it will pick up my face with it's at an extreme angle. So I'm guessing this is not a very secure face unlock.
Yeah, really.
But
I mean,
it's actually
kind of the camera is not good enough.
So basically, they've made it's like the in-screen fingerprint scanner ends up being a party trick, basically. So once you turn on the face unlock, as soon as you hit the fingerprint scanner with your thumb, the face unlock starts scanning. So it goes to face unlock mode 99.9% of the time. Unless you actively point the phone away from your face, it's always going to see your face. So it makes you think the fingerprint scanner is working, but it's not. So if you point it away from your face, like I'm going to do that right now. Let's see. Yeah, it unlocked that time. That's unusual. Let's see.
It does seem to take a pretty long time to decide too.
Yeah. No, it takes way too long. It's going to be a bad experience. I'm hoping that the faster processor on the 6T means hopefully they'll be able to make it a little quicker. But I don't think these in-screen readers are good. We'll talk about it. We should probably get started.
It is about that time.
Does the stream look good and everything?
I haven't looked. Corbin, if you're still around, if you want to tell us.
Yeah, one sec.
Okay. All right, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Android Police podcast. I'm David Ruddock.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
And I'm Ryan Hager.
And this week, we're going to talk about something you may be wholly uninterested in, but we have to talk about it. It's the rules. Apple did a bunch of stuff, and so and some of it was actually fairly interesting, too. This was not, you would think last year with the iPhone X being the big talk that 2018 would be the tick year, but I would argue that this year is actually probably more important for Apple in a hardware sense than last year was. So let's get rolling here. We'll start with phones, which I think were the biggest part of the announcement in terms of importance, just because Apple sells so many damn phones. And it actually, I think my personal opinion is that the phone that stole the show was the one that cost the least amount of money, and that's the iPhone XR. There are also the XS and the XS Max, all of which are horrible names for phones.
Yeah.
Just really bad.
I'm sorry. That's 10s and 10s Max.
I'm never saying that.
I'm never saying it either. I think calling it the iPhone XS is much more appropriate because it starts at $1,000.
What kind of phone do you have? I have an iPhone XR. Like, no.
Yeah, they're bad names. Especially considering last year, the 10 was an out of cycle phone. Like, there's no such thing as an iPhone 9. It never existed and never will exist.
Yeah. So breaking it down, I think all of these phones are actually very similar internally. So all of them have the same primary rear camera. The XR doesn't have the telephoto camera. The XS and XS Max both do. And then the XS and XS Max have, AMOLED displays, same notch cutout situation as the X last year. And then the XR has an LCD display, and it also has a notch. They all have Face ID. They all have the new A12 Bionic chip, which is the first commercially available 12 or 7 nanometer CPU on the market, which is a pretty big deal, I think. And they basically, despite the fact that they're all, priced differently, there isn't a lot of feature difference between the phones. Materials seem to be the biggest difference between all of them. If you want to look at LCD versus OLED that way, and then you have aluminum on the XR versus stainless steel on the XS and XS Max. And so I guess I think my kind of takeaway from this was that with the XS and XS Max, Apple seems pretty comfortable with the idea that it can charge luxury good prices for its best phones now. They're not looking at what anybody else is charging anymore. There's no attempt to play to the competition.
Yeah, no, I mean, and they've decided, like, yeah, the iPhone 10 worked out, so this is what iPhones look like now. There are no more like traditional iPhones with the Touch ID home button at the bottom. Like, where it's all about Face ID. And so that I feel like that's going to give Android manufacturers a license to stop using fingerprint sensors eventually.
I think that's going to be the case eventually. I wonder when eventually is.
Yeah, right now, everybody who's trying to do face unlock, they're doing it with cameras, unless they're Apple, and that's not good enough, obviously. And we need new sensor hardware to become available so that face unlock can actually be like a secure and effective solution. And that's probably going to take at least another year or two. So we're going to put up with kind of weird fingerprint sensor stuff until then, and apparently in-screen fingerprint readers that don't work properly.
Yeah. I think that the biometric thing is interesting. I mean, so if you were watching before we started, but you probably weren't because you're probably listening to this after the fact, I'm using a phone called the Vivo V11 or V11 Pro if you're in India, and it has an in-screen fingerprint scanner. And my observation so far is that the fingerprint scanner sucks real bad. So I have to wonder, after using this, I kind of started thinking about it. Apple had that home button for years. It's so iconic. Like, it was such a huge part of the iPhone experience and the brand and what set it apart. It was one of the things that, manufacturers in China and Samsung initially too, really copied the feel of. They wanted to have that kind of experience. It was something that was, very important to the iPhone, like the hardware design and just kind of how you knew it was an iPhone. It had that home button. So I have to think that, transitioning to the iPhone X, Apple probably, it seems like from a marketing perspective, you want to have some kind of callback to that kind of iconic feature, but they didn't. They did Face ID and completely eliminate the home button, went to a gesture-only operating system, which is pretty strange, honestly. It's a pretty big jump for Apple. I have a kind of wildly speculative theory. I bet Apple probably was, like everybody else, waiting for these in-screen fingerprint scanners, and would have some kind of virtual home button kind of planned out around this experience. But they discovered that these things suck. They're not very good. They're just not good to use. And Face ID was probably a co-developed plan B, where they just said, all right, we're going to, move away from fingerprint authentication entirely. I don't know. I have no evidence to back up that assertion. But after using one of these in-screen readers, it's something Apple wouldn't do. It's not a good experience. And that's my tie-in for the phone I got.
That's your tie-in. Okay, good. So yeah, I think I kind of agree with David though that the XR is the most interesting of those phones because it is going to sell in boatloads. People are going to buy that phone because it comes in pretty colors and it looks pretty much like the other iPhones.
The colors are pretty awesome, though. They're good colors.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
and people complain about the screen, but it's not that big of a deal. It's going to be IPS. It's going to be an amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Apple
screen.
always chose very good LCDs. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, they called out the presentation that it was the most accurate LCD panel on a phone. Like, so I'm pretty sure it'll be good.
I mean, and it's got slightly larger bezels because obviously it's not an OLED. They can't do the trick with the folded back, the drivers at the bottom. But the bezels are still pretty small. Like, they're smaller than a lot of Android phones that have OLED panels. So I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh, actually, somebody in the comments is talking about the Pixel and IP ratings. Do we know if the iPhone XR is IP rated?
I didn't even think to look.
I'm pretty sure they said all of them had the same rating.
Okay. Okay, they might have. I remember them talking about durability, but I'm trying to figure out if there's still like a big gotcha with the XR that nobody's discovered yet.
A spec sheet that I have just pulled up on the interweb says IP67.
Okay, cool.
Ooh.
So that's still pretty good.
Yeah, but it's still not.
But there is one gotcha. You can't actually buy one unlocked, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, not in America you can. I'm guessing in other markets they will. Okay, so the regular XS and XS Max, those are IP68. The XR is IP67. So the 68s are rated for immersion better.
So could you buy the iPhone 10 last year unlocked?
Yeah.
So
I don't think you could buy it at launch unlocked.
So then that's weird.
It was
so
like a month delayed or something.
So you have to buy it like on a carrier plan.
You have to buy it through a carrier. I think some of the carriers might let you buy it unlocked directly, but you have to do it through a carrier.
Well,
Apple,
no, that's not it. You can do it through Apple. You can buy the phone.
Yeah, you can go to an Apple store, obvioally. But I don't know if it will make you tie it to a carrier account and like lock it and buy it.
So the carrier versions are carrier locked. I maybe the Verizon version won't be because Verizon is typically sold unlocked iPhones.
But it's all the same SKU, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can still put a SIM lock on it.
Yeah.
So like, when you buy it, are they going to be like, okay, which carrier would you like this locked to?
I think they actually probably will have not different. It's the same hardware SKU, but I don't know that it would be the same product. Like packaging,
like the box will say this one has been locked to Sprint or whatever.
Maybe, I don't know, or maybe it's part of the activation process. So I know for last year with the iPhone X, they didn't let people buy it unlocked for a month because when you went to the store to buy it, they made you activate it on a carrier in the store. They wouldn't let you take it sealed in the box. So that was the thing. I don't know what they'll do this year in that regard. But yeah, you can't buy the XR unlocked in the US at launch, it sounds like. Other countries, I'm sure you will be able to. You have to pick one of the 4 carriers to start with. I still think it's by far the most interesting product Apple announced yesterday because it's a shift in their strategy. Apple's basically saying, all right, we have the products for our fans that are at these exorbitant price points, and we know people will pay them. They understand that market's there. And for the people who buy an iPhone every year or 2 years extremely reliably and just want the best one, that's what those phones are there for. Do you want the big one or the small one? This phone seems to be much more of a stab at let's convert some people from Android. This is aimed squarely at Samsung, LG, Google et al. This is
I'm sort of interested in what it would be like to use that phone, but I don't like iOS, so I'm sort of torn. Like I think it would be interesting, but I think I would also kind of hate it.
I was thinking of iOS.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the XR. I'm gonna buy the XR without a doubt. I'm not gonna keep it, but I'm gonna use it for at least a month.
Yeah, I was gonna get one, but because I can't buy it unlocked, I'm probably gonna go for the XS, just because I don't want to have to deal with buying something that's carrier locked and then resale and whatever.
So while the price and the screen differences are interesting, what I actually found a little more interesting was that with the XR, they're also going to just the one camera. So and they're kind of pitching that as no guys, if you want the best pictures, go to the XS. But look at how great the pictures are on the XR. So they're sort of doing this weird, they kind of have to dance around how good one is and then try to pitch the other one as better, but not so much better that you're like sacrificing. To me, that's the one where they're kind of making the big, not a big sacrifice, but they're sort of pushing their luck on how far followers go. And if if the single camera is only so good, then iPhone pictures are either looking not as good as they could, and that seems like it hurts Apple on the big public opinion stage, or they're looking really good, and it kind of shows that Apple's dual camera thing isn't really working out, or it's not that necessary.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I like having the telephoto lens. When I was using the X last year, I didn't think the quality was amazing. That was actually probably the biggest letdown for me about the iPhone X, was just like, well, the cameras are good, and Apple's processing is okay. The actual, like, white balance, scene exposure, everything, the iPhone's very good at that. The post processing is where the Pixels still kick their butts, pretty clearly.
I think the iPhones sort of get a pass on camera quality because for a long time they were undeniably the best, but that is no longer the case.
It's not. And with the new main sensor, I'll be curious to see, how much, and with the kind of new HDR, plus style processing they're doing on that sensor, I'll be curious to see what it is. But as far as I know, the XR and XS, they have the same main rear sensor. So they should produce, photos from that camera of comparable quality. They should be basically the same. The XS gets telephoto lens, and then they get the probably superior bokeh quality when doing the portrait stuff.
Assuming it uses the two lenses to determine parallax for that.
Yeah. So the R is relying on software to understand most of that, whereas the XS gets the benefit of a second lens for comparative data. So I mean, there's probably there are going to be endless comparisons of this. I still think that the R, you're not sacrificing on camera, if you ask me. In terms, you're getting rid of a lens, and for some people, maybe that matters. I think for most people, it really doesn't.
Oh, I have almost endless doubts that that's going to matter. I think almost everything that they're doing is probably going to be from that one single lens. From what a lot of people said with the X, that's true even then. They did not really use the telephoto lens all that much.
Yeah.
You don't need it to do it. You can do it with...
Well, Google already proved you don't need it.
Yeah.
Google proved that very, very easily.
And I think the other thing that Apple is underselling about this one, and they don't want to shout it too loud, it's going to have the best battery life of all three. So they've got the published specs out there. The internet time for the XR is 15 hours. The internet time for the XS Max is 13. So it's got at least a 15% battery life advantage over even the big XS. And that's down to two things. I think one, the LCD screen, and two, the fact that it's only pushing 720 pixels. They might have even, I would be curious what teardown show. I would not be surprised if they actually stuck a bigger battery in the R, or at least one that's basically the same size as the XS Max. Because this phone it's important in America, sure. In the developing world, in Southeast Asia especially, I think it's way more important. And I think they have to have the battery life to, go up against phones over there that are pushing 2 days on a charge. Apple has to have that narrative to say they're still competitive.
Do we know what pricing is going to be like in other countries for the XR?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen anything about that. I haven't looked.
Because I was going to say, a 750, that's competitive for what we are calling the mid-range in the United States, but a lot of other places,
oh no, it's crazy expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive for most developing markets.
But I think you have to, in the perspective of, in terms of how expensive iPhones are in other countries, the iPhone's always been a pretty high bar to reach. This will be the first iPhone probably in a lot of countries where you can get the brand new chip, you can get the latest version of iOS in a phone that is actually new at this price. So I think it's still going to be compelling from a value perspective, not compelling compared to, what Xiaomi is doing or what Honor is doing or what OnePlus is doing, but compelling from I want an iPhone, and previously iPhones have been a little too expensive for me. This is allowing you to get an iPhone that's new, has all the cool stuff, and does not cost $1,000. Or
they added the features you specifically need in markets like India and China. The dual SIM, dual standby. That's going to be a big deal in China. Yeah.
I think Apple's play with this phone is primarily outside the US. I still think it's going to be a very compelling sell in the US, and I think a lot of people buy it because of the colors. I think the colors are going to be a huge draw. Like a yellow phone? When's the last time you saw a yellow smartphone? It's weird. It's fun. It's cool. The blue is a nice shade. The blue reminds me of the shade all the Chinese companies are doing. The salmon is interesting, and red, of course. Red is always cool. So I wish they had a green, but oh well. They have white and black, and then the other color is, what's the other one? There are 6.
Probably gold.
Is there? I don't think there's a gold.
Pink gold, maybe.
So is the salmon one the pink?
Oh, the salmon one, yeah.
There's salmon, red, blue,
coral?
black, white.
Like
coral. That's coral's
Yeah.
the salmon, yeah.
Okay.
And there's one more. I don't remember right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this phone is going to put Samsung, Google, and LG on notice that, hey, Apple can release a phone that plays in your price range, and they're going to sell way more of them. And this is actually the first time Apple's done this in a way where, like, yeah, the hardware is competitive. People can talk about 720p screens all day. Nobody buying a phone actually cares. This is competitive on a feature level. And also, Apple's clearly 6 months ahead of Qualcomm and the gang in terms of their chipsets at this point.
At least 6 months.
At least, yeah. And I'm sure the GPU is pretty... I mean, Qualcomm's going to unveil its new Snapdragon chip in December this year, but you won't be able to get in a phone until like end of February, early March at the very earliest.
And Qualcomm's just starting to do
like the Galaxy S10 will probably be the first one you can get with it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Apple, if you want the most advanced phone you can buy right now, technologically speaking, it's Apple's making the case really well this year. This has not been a good year for Android phones, I would say, overall, in terms of differentiating and competing against Apple. Apple's lead has extended a little bit with this launch.
Yeah, I mean, everybody just is like obsessed with doing a bad job of making a notch for their phone that they're neglecting other things.
Yeah, and I think there are the other area where Apple is pulled ahead by a factor of at least a year, maybe 2. Their other big announcement yesterday was the Apple Watch and the Series 4.
Yeah, that's
the one big rumor panned out.
Yeah, that's like Android Wear is in such a bad state of disrepair right now, and it's not going to get any better as long as it's being propped up by Fossil Group. Fashion companies, they're putting different shells around the same components. They don't care about innovating on the hardware. You're never going to get an EKG from Fossil Group.
No, definitely not. And I think the Apple Watch Series 4, it's their first really big hardware refresh of the Apple Watch, and I'm curious to see it in person. I actually think it's kind of ugly, but it does look...
I thought that every Apple Watch is kind of ugly, and I think this one is still kind of ugly.
Yeah, I think this one's uglier in a specific way. It just looks... It's too round. I don't know. Something about it feels weird. Yeah. I mean, I'll have to see it in person. You don't know. But yeah, the Apple Watch is, if one thing, it is unmistakable. You can always tell when somebody's wearing an Apple Watch. It's
and you know what? And you see them all the damn time.
You do. You really do. I mean,
I can count on one hand the number of... Android or Samsung watches I've seen in the last year.
Yeah. I mean, the one area where Apple seems content to not care is battery life. We get the same great 18 hours.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, right.
I think that's one area where, I think the new Snapdragon Wear chip, I think will push the new Wear watches to 1.5 to 2 days pretty easily.
And what's interesting is that Apple's battery life measurements are all based on having the screen off, except when you're looking at the watch.
Yeah.
Which is kind of I think that's a silly way to use a smartwatch. At least Wear OS defaults to having, the always on ambient mode. That, is more useful to me personally.
But on the hardware side and the app support side, companies are still investing in making Apple Watch, software and integrating with Apple. And Apple is still clearly, making first-party software advancements. The new fall detection stuff, for most of us, that's probably not very interesting. But for a certain market that might be, less interested in a smartwatch, but, people who are health conscious as they're getting older, hey, that's actually a pretty nifty feature. And something that's very saleable, I think, in terms of, showroom experience. It's also very cool. It's cool from just a technological perspective that the watch can just detect the kind of fall you had or whatever. And then the EKG, ECG, whatever you want to call it, feature is, again, plays to that older audience. People who traditionally probably wouldn't be interested in a wearable, but at the same time, probably have the disposable income to buy one. I think having that health focus is what is propelling the Apple Watch to success. Android Wear, the health focus has been so haphazard. they've had some cool stuff like workout type detection, but it's so hit or miss.
I've never gotten that to work on a Wear OS device, like ever.
Yeah.
Like I know, like they've told us a few times that it would like be a thing, but it's never worked in any watch that I have had. I mean, Fitbit and Samsung are both very good at workout detection, but Wear OS has been behind as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I've tested it time and time again when Fit updates came out and claimed that they had added all this stuff, and it never worked for me. The most that ever really worked was step counting, and there was some short period of time where you could kind of turn it on and tell it track what I'm doing, and it would try to guess, but you're telling it actively that it needs to track, and at that point you might as well just tell it what you're doing.
Yeah. Google, the whole issue here is that Google's beholden to Qualcomm. And I think so Evan Blass, earlier this year, tweeted that Google was going to release a smartwatch at its event in October this year. And Evan's very reliable when it comes to most of these things. And then there was a story on Tom's where, Google executives said, no, we're not doing a smartwatch this year. Now, I don't know that we ever got a code name that specifically pointed to a smartwatch. I would not be surprised if Google just canceled it and said, we've got to start over. I know that we had that leak about the Wear OS Coach, the smart fitness assistant. Haven't heard anything about that. And I wonder if that maybe got sent back to the drawing board too. If Google is going to launch this big Wear feature, it would probably want a piece of hardware to launch it on. And I don't see anything upcoming that sounds, we've got the one Wear 3100 device that's been announced, which is the Mont Blanc, right? And that'll be way too expensive for a mainstream audience. So
that fits with the quote that was included in Tom's Hardware, where they said they wanted it to be everything to everyone in the perfect watch. I bet they got wind of what it was Apple was doing this fall, and they realized, oh, we can't do this. The watch we've built, this isn't good enough. We back to the drawing board, got to do it again.
I think so. And I think as long as they're beholden to Qualcomm, Google's going to have problems with the wearable space. If there's one platform where having dedicated custom designed hardware makes sense, these wearables, the use cases are so specific. The needs can be so demanding in terms of just accomplishing a specific task, because a lot of it's fitness and health focused.
Yeah.
I think Qualcomm's building a product for every watch. Qualcomm's not building a product around a single watch concept.
Yeah, and the tolerances for a wearable are a lot tighter. You need something that is going to be able to sip battery life over the course of an entire day, while it's connected over Bluetooth to your phone, which is janky in the first place. And that it's still able to be fast enough that you can use it for short periods of time, and it's not going to take longer than using your phone.
Yeah, I think that without a dedicated hardware platform, Google's always going to be behind in wearables. Apple's showing that basically by and Samsung to an extent too. Samsung's battery life they get out of Tizen wearables is commendable. I mean, some of that's down software, but I think it's also down to having such tight control of the hardware top to bottom. They can control everything. I just think for Google, the wearable thing, it doesn't seem to be panning out. And they try to sell this story all the time. Over 150 Wear OS watches on the market. But nobody's buying them.
Yeah, I mean, and most of them are the same device with different outside.
Yeah, it's not a compelling product story. Android succeeded on the saturation premise, and so I think Google is just trying to sell that back again with Wear OS. Oh, look at all the devices. Of course, that means we're successful.
Yeah, I mean, you have to sell people on a smartwatch in a way that you didn't have to with a smartphone. Smartphones are everybody can understand why this is useful.
Yeah,
exactly. A smartwatch is
a smartphone.
No.
I think with a smartwatch, you have to sell somebody the personal use case. Why do you need this? How does this fit into your life? How does it help you? And I think with the Apple Watch, Apple's made that really easy to understand. It's about tracking your health. It's about caring about yourself. And I think that Apple sold that narrative extremely well. Whereas Android Wear has kind of been well, it looks cool and does notifications stuff.
I mean, and also Apple's hey, look at all these cool bands that we'll sell you right now, right here, that are super easy to swap onto your watch. And meanwhile, Google Mode, remember the Mode bands? Anybody remember that? That was a thing for 5 seconds.
And as much as I don't think the Apple Watch I don't personally find it to be a good looking product. It has that sense of being jewelry, that I don't think any of the Android Wear watches have. The Android Wear watches have that really unfortunate. They're like in the uncanny valley where it looks like a watch, and then you look at it and it's like, oh, it's not a watch. And I think
Samsung's watches get pretty close to the hey, is that a real watch aesthetic?
Yeah, I think Samsung's doing a better job than most of the Android Wear partners. I think the problem with the Android Wear partners is saying like, this is literally a watch, but we put a screen in it, and it doesn't gel well. I think that like, you need to have that kind of futuristic aesthetic going with it to say like, hey, it's not a normal watch.
Yeah, I think the best Android Wear watches are the ones that sort of reference a watch design, but they are clearly like something else, like the original Moto 360 and the original Huawei watch. Like they both were like, that's a watch, but it kind of also looks like it's a piece of like technology.
I think the original Huawei watch is probably the best looking piece of hardware.
I mean, and Huawei just stumbled into that. They had no idea what they were doing.
They didn't. Yeah, I think when I think back to the Huawei watch, I still have it in a drawer somewhere. But like, I was like, oh wow, this actually looks nice. I like to have this on my wrist. It's pretty. In a way that a regular watch isn't. It doesn't look like a regular watch.
I had more people ask me about that watch than I think any other smartwatch I have worn.
Yeah, I'm totally agreed. And then when they came out with the Huawei Watch 2, I was like, garbage. So I think that the whole Wear thing has been a misfire. And then watching Apple do this, it's just they're probably a couple years ahead at this point. It's pretty ridiculous. So when I buy the iPhone XR, I'm probably going to buy an Apple Watch Series 4 to go with it and see what the experience is like. I mean,
I bet it'll be better than Wear OS
and then sell them. If so, we're clear. Like, I'm not going to stay on the iPhone.
He's not going to go. He's not going to leave and write for 9 to 5 Mac.
Yeah. Sorry. But I'm curious. I never used an Apple Watch, and so I'm curious what the experience is like. Speak. XJ7 asks, do you think they'll rush EKG into Wear? I would not be surprised if Apple has some very nice patents attached to.
I mean, and who's going to do that? I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's going to build that watch?
I would say I would bet my money far more on Samsung to do that than I would ever bet.
Samsung might give that a shot. They're probably the only company that would be able to because they have control over the hardware and the software. And like if you're David went away, he'll be back, I'm sure.
Just really quick, I'm going to jump in and point out Samsung also has a massive health initiative going on in other countries, so they own whole hospitals. And
if you're going to sell something that has an EKG in it, you have to go through the FDA and get it certified, and that's hard. It's hard to do, and most companies making smartwatches do not have the ability to make that happen.
Yeah. So the FDA. So actually, there's been a lot of articles about this, about what the FDA clearance means. So it's not an FDA approval. It's an FDA clearance. The FDA
they're allowed to sell it, basically.
They're allowed to sell it. They're not allowed to say what it like this is diagnostically, effective medical equipment. Like they're saying basically, hey, you can use this and it's a rough guide and maybe it gives you an idea, but it's not diagnostic.
Yeah, it's not a proper medical device.
I mean, the screens they've shown, they don't provide like a lot of data. They just say like everything is A-okay, or hey, maybe you should go to the doctor.
Exactly. They're not giving you the raw EKG output. So there's nothing that you can analyze that way. That said, their presentation, I think, actually, if I was at the FDA, I might be doing some emailing the way they talked about it. They made it sound, it's equivalent to a stage, or a single point EKG. It's like, well, I think the FDA would beg to differ that it's equivalent. They would probably say that, yeah, it's similar to. But anyway, that's a quibble. I also think that I noticed a distinct lack of focus on LTE this time. They did talk about standalone usage. I don't think that's realistic. The battery life on the Apple Watches on LTE has been so bad. I don't think it's probably much better this time. Also, there's been a total lack of Android Wear devices with LTE anymore. They're all gone.
Yeah, they were useless anyway.
Uh-huh. So I think that rounds out kind of the Apple announcements. I think that, if smartphones are a ebb and flow between Apple and everybody else, Apple won this year. I don't think anybody's going to come up with anything that's really going to give pause. I don't think any Android phone brand is giving anybody a reason to stop buying iPhones this year, is what I would say. And I think with the iPhone XR, Apple is giving some people on the Android side reason to consider an iPhone, maybe that wasn't there last year or years before, giving them a next generation handset design, no compromises on internals, really, and basically the same experience as the more expensive phone. And I'm curious to see how that shapes product announcements and everything in 2019, because that's how long it's going to take to respond to this stuff from the Android side. So what else do we want to talk about this week? That's all I got.
Well,
we can always talk about Tunnel Bear.
We could.
Are we doing a plug?
You put it. It's where you put it. That's where you put it.
I didn't put it anywhere. It wasn't.
No,
I don't put the plugs.
I put it in the document. Corbin told me to. He forgot to put it in.
Okay, Ryan can plug it this time.
Okay, so Tunnel Bear is a VPN provider, and we're happy to have them as a sponsor on the podcast. So if you need a VPN, for example, if you don't trust your shady ISP, as many of us do not, then maybe you should get a VPN like Tunnel Bear. All your traffic goes through Tunnel Bear, and your ISP doesn't know what you're doing. And Tunnel Bear has a mascot that is a bear, and it's pretty great. You should go and look at it just to see the mascot. It's fabulous. It is also the only major VPN that has gone through a full independent security audit. They publish the data, so you can go and see proof that all of their app code and their backend is all nice and secure, and your data will be safe. So if you want to go check that out, you can pay $10 for a single month of Tunnel Bear for unlimited use. But if you buy a year, you can get it for $5 a month. You can go to tunnelbear.com/AndroidPolice to do that. And we would appreciate it greatly if you did that.
So if you live in Europe and you're suffering from advanced meme withdrawal as a result of the recent bill which passed through,
yeah, you just set up a VPN connection to the US.
Just give us your money.
You can meme all you want. You can post all those copyright infringing memes.
Did the thing in Europe? Did you? We reported on this.
I know. I didn't read it. I remember seeing the headline.
So
summarize the news for me.
The new copyright rules in Europe, supposedly, they require sites. They're basically saying that sites are liable for the things that their users post, and if they post copyright infringing content, that is unacceptable. So they have to have filters that look for that. And everybody's saying well, that'll filter out every meme, because every meme is based on some copyrighted thing.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, VPN into the US, Europe.
Is this a troll? Did somebody?
Nope, they're not trolling.
What?
Yeah, they have a site up. It's just a landing page, but there's
oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, it's a big number 3.
Thank you.
Obviously, we're all having a moment here because there's
So if you go to store.google.com/us/product/3, there's a big landing page where you can
3
sign up.
spelled out.
Presumably
a
Pixel 3 thing, but
it's a Pixel 3 page.
Yeah.
There's nothing interesting on it. You can just sign up, get an email that will come out probably 4 hours after the phone's announced.
I don't have that. I just have a 3 and stay tuned.
Oh no, it says get the scoop, sign up for me.
What the? Yeah.
Oh, and I clicked it and now I'm subscribed. Apparently that just happens automatically.
Confirmed. Ryan hates Google. Google hates Ryan. Sorry, the backward.
Whatever. Whatever.
Anyway, so actually, one thing. Let's see. There was some Google hardware news this week. If we want to talk about that very briefly, Google updated the headphone adapter for the Pixel phone. Weird.
Yeah.
Why now? Why not just wait for the new phone?
Probably because
have they had the headphone adapter in stock lately? I feel like there's been an ongoing issue with people getting it.
I don't know. I know it came back in stock because a couple of people in our VIP room talked about picking one up. So I know they're back in stock just before this happened.
Well, they should send that back and get the new one because apparently it will offer better battery life.
I wonder if it's using the Qualcomm, the new audio codec they announced last year.
Oh, maybe.
I bet that's what it is. I would not be surprised if that's why it's better now. Because Qualcomm actually, they came up with this. What is it? I forget the product number or whatever. But anyway, they came up with a Hexagon DSP based headphone adapter chipset that they marketed to OEMs. Basically, with the idea is you get equivalent audio quality as you get an 800 series Snapdragon chip, but in the headphone adapter. It's just a little DAC in the headphone dongle to try and up the consistency of quality in these adapters, because a lot of them suck. So I would not be surprised if it's notably better. Oh, and so Scott asked in the chat, they're promising improved battery life using the adapter this time around. And yeah, so basically the amplifier is probably more power efficient in this new one. So if it's using new hardware on a smaller process, especially, so the circuitry is probably using less power, and the amplifier is probably just better transistors. So it's probably just more power efficient this time. So because the adapter has to be powered by the phone, over the USB-C connection, it takes power. So that's why it might increase your battery life. I should probably pull up the topic sheet. I guess I never did that.
You just thought you'd fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, just winging it.
That's why you didn't know about Tunnel Bear.
Yeah. Oh, we should talk about the OnePlus 6T.
I'm so sad. Yeah. I'm so upset.
We've talked. Yeah, two things are changing with the OnePlus 6T. Both appear to be bad.
Yeah. One is obviously bad, and one is potentially bad.
One is obviously bad, but one is also potentially worse. I think.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So, okay, so let's start with the obviously bad thing. No headphone jack, so that's going to be a thing. And they like OnePlus. They pulled a Google because they were like very adamantly pro headphone jack last time around, and now they're like, well, but maybe not. Maybe we don't need that. I think it shows like how tied they are to Oppo's hardware choices.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I think so. No, actually, I don't think it is necessarily being tied to Oppo, because I'm using a Vivo phone, which is also an Oppo phone. They're all owned by the same company. It has headphone jack. But
does the R17 does not? Though,
yeah, it's based off the R17.
That's the Oppo, but I'm just saying the V11 Pro is based on the R17 too. So they're all very similar, and I think OnePlus at this point has the autonomy and the capability to design the phone with features that they want. Like OnePlus isn't like, oh well, Oppo's not using a fingerprint scanner anymore, I guess we can't. They're making a decision. Like I don't think that they're that beholden to Oppo in terms of the hardware and everything. So I don't buy the explanation that this is just like, oh well, the R17 doesn't have it, so the OnePlus doesn't have it.
They're claiming that there's going to be some distinct advantage to it not having it, like nebulously, and I'm sure it's just going to be like, well, we got a bigger battery in there, and the in-screen fingerprint reader. And
you'll find that we got a bigger battery in this is our phone.
Yeah, exactly. And I want my goddamn headphone jack back.
I think probably the advantage they're going to spin is that it's going to come with I bet they're going to ship it with headphones in the box. And
They said that there's going to be.
They announced the Type-C headphones too. Yeah, so that would be proper.
Okay. I bet that's the advantage. But I bet the advantage is, hey, you're getting dope headphones with your phone now. I just really, really hope that it just like it works with the same like the Type-C audio stuff that the Pixel works with. Like I don't want any more like weird standards from OnePlus. I don't want like dash audio. So I actually watched a pretty good video today that was popular on our Android about the state of USB-C audio on Android phones. It's by it's Gordon Ung over at PC Mag, but PC World. Sorry, like I'm sure that was like the biggest faux pas I could have made in terms of the PC news publishing industry. So sorry. Anyway, there was a video about the kind of state of the adapter situation. So you have two types of adapters on Android phones, digital and analog. Analog adapters break USB-C spec. They're not actually USB-C legal. It's not like the USB-C police are going to come to your door and be like, excuse me, sir, your USB-C implementation is illegal. It's more like, well, that's not technically what you're supposed to do with USB-C. Anyway, Motorola phones use the analog out, and so do Huawei phones. Huawei phones support both, though. Huawei phones support digital USB-C audio out and analog USB-C audio out. Moto's phones only support analog. They don't support the digital.
In my experience, if you plug a regular like digital Type-C audio device into a Huawei phone, it complains, like it pops up a notification and it says like, hey, this isn't an approved device. It might not work.
Oh, yeah, because they ship their own USB-C headphones with phones. So they're like, oh, you should use those. But anyway, the situation's bad. Where was I going with this?
Digital and analog. Yeah.
Anyway, I just think the whole situation, it's pretty terrible. People use headphones. Headphones are a thing people do with smartphones. I'm pro headphone jack. I have been on planes recently where I've been like, God damn it, I forgot my headphone adapter for my Pixel. I can't listen to music. It sucks. It's not good.
I take the Type-C headphones now.
I don't want to buy Type-C headphones. I have 1,000,000 3.5mm headphones.
I know, but I think we've lost this battle.
And I can't. The Type-C headphones I have are the HTC Usonic ones I've hoarded from review units, which don't work in anything but HTC phones. It's very annoying
because I love using the Android Auto app, but I don't have any way on a phone that only has a USB-C port to get both audio and charging. So I'm either sitting there slowly draining my battery, technically in some cases draining it pretty quickly because I have GPS on tracking as I'm driving around. And I have to choose between, do I want music or do I want to charge my phone? And I hate that.
Are there any functional like splitters that have the power and the audio? Because I know there was that one that Google was going to sell that got canceled because it didn't work.
Because
has anything else come out?
The Amazon reviews were terrible. They sold it on Amazon.
They sold it on Amazon
bad.
And it didn't work, so they canceled it. But like, is there?
I think it's pretty hard to do. You would probably. I would bet the issue is you need to have a really big, beefy set of like isolating components in that little box.
The audio channel would probably just be so noisy.
Yeah, I think that was really the problem there. Like, you basically just have to have another phone's worth of like, electronic isolation.
Yeah, like if you're pumping like 18 watts of power through this thing and trying to get audio out of it, like,
yeah. I think that was really the problem. Speaking of unpopular decisions, Google is killing Inbox.
We didn't talk about the fingerprint sensor, but like that's also the end.
Oh yeah, they're gonna do an in-screen fingerprint sensor on 6T. That's confirmed, and my guess is that it will not be good.
Yeah, so we'll have to see when they release this, but based on what we know from that Vivo phone, it's gonna suck.
But you should also be angry about Inbox. There are a lot of things to be angry about on this week's show, but Inbox is probably top of the list.
I mean, I didn't use Inbox, so like my anger is sort of like, I don't know, like I have sympathetic anger for you guys, but it doesn't really bother me.
Be angrier, Ryan. We need to be angry.
I've been ranting in work Slack all fucking day about this.
He really,
Ryan has
really
been having
has.
Like an existential crisis.
It has been nonstop all day. You wouldn't even believe
just
everybody.
Constant.
Oh Jesus,
I'm so bad.
Yeah, I've used Inbox since it was announced. I love it for so my Inbox usage has been, I love it for my personal email. The trip bundles in particular are amazing. Gmail doesn't have those. It never got that feature. I think the trip bundles are goddamn outstanding. Like I rely on them. And I don't have them anymore. I've switched over to regular Gmail already, just knowing that in 6 months it's going to die anyway, so who cares? It sucks. I don't like it. I want regular Inbox. I need it. It's so much cleaner. And also it had a lot fewer ads. And that's, I think, really part of the reason I'm annoyed. Like, because I feel like I see like, oh, there are 2 items in my tab here. Oh wait, no, they're both ads. That is really throwing me for a loop.
I just can't give up bundling, man. I used Inbox for work.
Bundling is so good.
It's the best. Like when I started work at AP, I didn't have to configure a goddamn thing. I fired up Inbox and bundling just took care of all of it. It was like
so Liam in the chat points out the low density layout. It made it so visually unstressful to manage email. Yeah. Everything was tucked away and yet visible. I don't know how to explain it. If you've never used Inbox, it's hard to really convey just how different it was in terms of managing your email. It took a tired concept, which is an email inbox, and how it's laid out, and basically injected machine learning and AI to decide, like, how do we make you spend less time dealing with this? And it works so well. I think this is a little bit of a conspiracy. I think it worked a little too well. I would guess that the amount of time people spent engaged with Inbox is significantly lower than Gmail.
Yeah, Gmail is a very important product to Google, and I'm sure that the Gmail team was uncomfortable with
And I'm also
Inbox.
sure that on a business level, they're like, got a lot of people using this whole Inbox thing that makes us no damn money. Gmail makes money. I'm sure Gmail makes a significant amount of money. So, I mean, I'm guessing the plan was eventually to introduce ads into Inbox in a more aggressive fashion. but that never happened. And I think the inbox team just kind of got a. I think the inbox team has been operating on a free Google Pass for a while, where they just kind of do whatever they want.
Like everybody just forgot that they were down there doing.
I think so. I really
think
so.
One day, somebody, a Gmail engineer, is like, "Hey, is inbox still a thing? We should look into this." And they found out, well, it is still a thing.
I bet it probably came down to, listen, we're planning to do this big feature change in Gmail. There's a feature conflict with inbox. Somebody's got to go.
It's not going to be Gmail.
Yeah. Ugh. I am never the person who actually like cares about a Google product getting killed. I care so much about this one.
This is your Google Reader.
It is, and I'm willing to let it go. I'm sad and upset and confused.
I'll just keep taking it out on you guys in work chat. It's fine.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I don't know how Ryan uses it for work email. Like I'd go insane. That's too much. It's over dense. It's the information is too condensed for me. I have to use. So I think if you use tabbed inbox in Gmail, you can get a similar experience for what we do work-wise, but
I feel like that's abusing the purpose of the tabs. I have to like set up a bunch of filters to try to. Yeah,
I'm a tab abuser. So like Gmail has 4 tabs. You have the primary, promotion, or 5. So primary, social, promotions, updates, and forums. And so what I've done is I've just started putting email. I just sort by color, like green emails, blue emails, yellow emails, purple emails. I don't even see the tab labels anymore. I just know that purple is like my secondary important. I have my primary. Purple is like sent to tips line and some stuff that gets through that's PR that goes directly to tips at Android Police. Yellow is all automated emails. Anything that's automated goes in the yellow. Blue is from social media sites, which garbage, don't even look at it ever. And green is automated press releases. And so I've got it all set up that way. And so I have my system. My primary inbox is basically only things that go from personal emails to tips or personal emails to me. So it works out. But apparently that's harder to set up than I imagined. It took me a little while to get that to work. Anyway.
In inbox, you get all of that by default. God,
yes, you do. The AI aspect of inbox was so good. Yeah, I'm gonna miss it. Rip in pieces, inbox. We already talked about Qualcomm's wearable chip as part of the Apple discussion. I think that something worth discussing to close out the show. Ryan used the Galaxy Nexus for a week.
I did. Technically, a little more than a week.
I would love to hear about this experience.
So, friend of mine from back in Reno was able to send me my old phone, and after having used the Nexus 5 for the better part of a week, I decided it was a good idea to take another step further back and examine what was my first experience with Android, because my first Android phone was the Galaxy Nexus. I had a tablet before that was this god-awful Arcos Froyo piece of shit, but the Galaxy Nexus was like my first decent device.
Wait, is this the unlocked Galaxy Nexus or the Verizon LTE one?
So there was the unlocked GSM one, and I was able to get a hold of a Korean import extended battery at the time. So battery life was actually mostly okay on the Galaxy Nexus. It was as good as the Nexus 5, which is, I think that's pretty reasonable. It's as good as a phone 2 years later that had a half-dead battery, whatever. But even though it was pretty good, I actually wasn't paying attention the whole time. And one night after Dungeons & Dragons, I was walking home and my phone died in my pocket. And that was fun because I've never not had a charged phone on me for at least like 3 or 4 years now. That just doesn't happen. I'm always like careful, and phone battery life is good enough. That's not a problem. So that was actually a really interesting experience because I had to walk the whole way home, no phone. And what else? A lot of apps didn't work. I was actually really surprised at how many apps didn't work. I assumed that having taken a look at APK Mirror and stuff like that, most apps seem to be targeting Ice Cream Sandwich 4.0 or later, but actually a lot of the stuff I depend on targets 4.4 or later. Because
what did that phone end on? Was it a Jelly Bean build of some manner?
Yeah, 4.3.1 or something like that. So I guess a bunch of things that were introduced in 4.4, TLS, a couple of other like things you need just to do stuff on the internet in 2018. It doesn't work for it. So like I can't enter in credit card data on sites. Most sites, it just won't work. It won't accept it because the phone can't send it properly in the way that things want to get that information now. And so a lot of just like weird little stuff, I'd be doing something and I just like come up against a wall that I couldn't do it, or the app or the service or whatever would just not play nice with 4.3.
I mean, and that software isn't ancient. That's like what, 2013?
Something like that. 2013.
Yeah,
that's
5 years. I mean, you could be running a version of Windows from 5 years ago, and it would still do stuff, I assume.
Yeah, some things worked, but a lot of things didn't, and it was really surprising. The RAM was also fairly limiting. There's a lot of apps these days just do not, like whatever worked on Android Go wouldn't work here. I'd have to 2 apps max.
I feel like to get the true Galaxy Nexus experience, though, you have to get the Verizon LTE version that launched in the US, because that was a special kind of hell. Let me tell you, that was I lived with that phone for a year, and it was probably the worst year of using Android in my entire life. And like, that was not my first phone, but man, I still remember like that thing, like every day when I left the house, like I still had a regular job at the time that I would like go to every day. And that phone by like 10 or 11 in the morning, like it was hot in my pocket. Like it was heating up because this LTE modem was such a piece of garbage. And I'd be like, well, I guess I'll just plug this in during lunch because otherwise it's going to be dead by 2 p.m. And like it got horrible signal, and the battery life was absolute garbage, and Verizon was slow to update it because it was just everything about it was bad.
Yeah. The GSM model wasn't too bad. I used it for quite a while. I used it, and then late in the Nexus 4's release cycle, I picked up a Nexus 4, and then I just picked up every Nexus up until the Nexus 6. But yeah, it wasn't actually that bad of an experience. I was expecting worse, and I'm in the middle of worse than that. But it was like the bare minimum. It was still like using a smartphone.
Yeah, Ryan's beat now is basically to use shitty old phones. That's his job right now. I don't envy him at all.
Editor of shitty.
He has to use shitty old phones and Gmail.
Yeah. It's no surprise that he's been yelling in Slack all day. I mean, Jesus, his life is a living hell right now.
It's fine.
He has to also use Gmail on the shitty old phones.
Well, yeah. I mean, as much as one can.
All right. I think that wraps up our topics for this week. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you next time. We're waving. Is Corbin there?
I'm not Corbin to kill the thing.
Yeah, he's coming.
He's watching. He's supposed to be killing.
Crunchy Goodness says he loves you, Ryan, for writing the inbox article.
He was the guy